Good afternoon. Peter Thomas here in Washington, D.C., General Counsel of the National Association for the Advancement of Orthotics and Prosthetics. We are now in the sequester, and that means that what most people thought would never happen has actually happened. As a result of Congress's failure to come together to reach an alternative agreement that would cut spending by about $1.2 trillion, that was ultimately passed into law by the Budget Control Act back in the summer of 2011. Across-the-board cuts have now applied to all federal agencies, except certain agencies that have been exempted under sequester. In particular, and of note to prosthetics and orthotics, and the practitioners and consumers who benefit from them, the Veterans Health Programs are exempt from the sequester. The Medicaid program is exempt, and the Social Security program is exempt from sequester as well. But Medicare is not. Medicare will receive a 2% cut in all provider fees, technically effective March the 1st. However, it will take several weeks for CMS to implement the payment changes that will be necessary to process claims. And so recent information from the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, suggests that it will be April 1st before the 2% cut in reimbursement fees can apply toward the orthotic and prosthetic fee schedule, as that same cut will apply to all Medicare providers in all different settings. It's limited to 2%. The real question as well will be, well, the sequester is a 7-month cut, across-the-board cut, and now that the Medicare reforms or the Medicare cuts will be implemented over a 6-month period, will that 2% climb to somewhere around 2.2% or something along those lines? And we probably expect that to occur because they have to make up that amount of revenue. The cuts across the board to other agencies are much deeper. So, for instance, the National Institutes of Health will be cut $1.6 billion over the next 7-month period. That's a big number considering the fact that the entire budget for the National Institutes of Health is about $31 or $31.5 billion. The sequester, again, was never intended to go into effect. It was viewed as a set of across-the-board cuts that was so harmful that Congress and the President would never allow it to go into effect. And yet it has gone into effect largely because the political parties have not been able to come to a compromise to reduce spending and to increase taxes in such a way that it would materially advance deficit reduction and debt reduction in this country in a way that complies with the Budget Control Act. And so that's what we have before us. There's no telling how long the sequester will last. There's indications that there are some major points at which it may be resolvable. The first point is later this month, March 26th, the federal government runs out of money, and Congress will have to pass either a set of appropriations bills or a continuing resolution to fund the federal government through the end of the fiscal year, which ends on September 30th. That's a natural point at which the sequester may end if the Congress and the President are able to agree to spending cuts to offset the $86 billion that is cut under sequester between now and the end of the fiscal year. So that's what we have before us. That's the impact that will begin to trickle down, and not just trickle down to O&P, it will begin to trickle down to virtually all federal agencies that are under the sequester. As I said, there are a few that are exempted at the beginning of this webcast. So stay tuned. There's also a budget process that will begin in earnest throughout the course of March and into April, where the House and Senate will be proposing and passing separate budgets and will try to reach a joint budget resolution. And the President, of course, will also release his budget. Now they're saying as late as late March, and that would be about 6 weeks late from when he normally releases the federal budget, which is supposed to be announced in early February. So until that all happens, it's really no telling the true impact the sequester will have. But most people are saying it's going to take about 0.6% off the gross domestic product and should slow the economy to some extent. It's an indiscriminate cut that applies to not only non-defense programs, discretionary spending, but also to defense programs as well to a very significant degree. So you'll hear a lot of hearings on Capitol Hill, you'll hear a lot of rhetoric, you'll hear a lot of impact that the sequester will have over the coming weeks. And in some ways, hopefully that will force people to sit down, compromise, and agree to an alternative plan that is much less harmful. We'll be in touch when we learn more. Thanks so much. Bye now.